All right, welcome everybody to the Sunday morning Science of Mind class with your host, Dr. Petra. Welcome to all those who are watching us on Facebook Live and in the Zoom room. If you'd like to hop over to the Zoom room, you could always hit the link in the description above and make sure to join our interactive experience. And as always, I'd like to encourage everybody to visit us at CSLDallas.org for all of your spiritual content, workshops, classes, and so many more activities. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Petra Weldes.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Thanks so much. Well, I hope everybody had a good night's sleep since we sprung forward and that everybody remembered to change their clocks. And kudos to those of you who are here with me this morning. So we're on the bottom of page 275, Spirit and Mental Law. And there's so much good in this little section right here, Spirit and Mental Law. It is impossible to divorce spiritual understanding from the proper use of mental law. And so this is a recognition of the idea that in the creative process, there are these two co-equal, co-eternal, actual ways in which we can understand the infinite reality. The first, the Spirit of God, which we think of as the Heavenly Father, if we have that as our background. The Spirit of God is a divine presence. So when we use the term spirit or universal spirit, we often mean this divine presence. And while the law, the universal mental law, is a mechanical force, and it goes on to say very few people differentiate between the spirit of the universe and the law of the universe. And I would say that's true for science mind and metaphysicians. We often say, well, spirit will make that happen. Actually, no, it's the law that makes things happen. Spirit doesn't make anything happen. Spirit simply is. And it's the beingness of all life. Spirit is the beingness of all the qualities of life. Spirit is the beingness of the way life unfolds, the way this infinite reality is moving, the way God is spirit. What God does is the law. And how God brings it forward is the law. And so this is why we differentiate the beingness from the process of creation. So this differentiation is really important. It's not like we're saying there's God spirit and then some other God over here, law. There is one infinite reality that has different ways of being. It's different aspects to itself. And if we understand these different aspects, then we have a deeper grasp of the nature of reality, our place in it, and what the meaning of our life is and what our purpose is. So it goes on to say, it doesn't matter whether an electrician is a Methodist, a Catholic, or a Buddhist, right? He's going to use electricity. It's going to work here, there, and everywhere. And this is what it means to be a law of electricity, a law of mathematics, right? It isn't actually a thing. It's not a thing like a thing in the space-time continuum necessarily. Well, I guess electricity actually is, right? It's the movements of the electrons. But its functions, its processes are all governed by law. You need to have something that conducts it. If it doesn't have a conductor, you don't actually have electricity, right? And it doesn't, there's no personalness to that. If you do it right, you get electricity. If you don't get electricity, or you get a fire, which is equally as bad. So here's this thing, right? Here's the statement. This does not seem strange to us, that the law is the law. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a nice person. It doesn't matter what religion you are, what philosophy you are, nothing, right? You use the laws. But often when we approach things which seem to be religious and spiritual, we think now we are outside the realm of the law. God is good, therefore the law no longer exists. We think that if we're good, we get our good because the presence is rewarding us. Don't we often think that? Well, I meditate every day and I'm a loving person. I expect to be prosperous. Yeah, not so much. Not if I have a mental equivalent of lack. It doesn't matter that I meditate every day or that I am a good person. If I'm not using the law in a way that manifests my life, do you see? There's no reward or punishment, because that's the other side of the coin, right? Not only are we not rewarded, we're also not punished. It's simply the outpicturing of the law. We must differentiate between the divine presence as a universal spirit, a thing to be communed with, right? The divine presence is the thing we experience as the essential oneness of life, the palpable sense of belonging and being part of a whole and feeling that larger reality. We need to differentiate between the divine presence, which is a thing to be communed with, and the universal law, which is simply a blind force. The law is a blind force. Unless we misuse it, we should be very careful to follow a constructive course. Why? Because the law is a blind and mechanical force. And so misusing the law really means using it for that which is not in alignment with spiritual truth, spiritual values, spiritual principles, which is not in alignment with oneness and wholeness and joy and love and abundance and peace and harmony and all the things that we attribute to this one infinite presence. If it's not in alignment with it, we're misusing the law, meaning that we're using it for destructive outcomes, to follow a destructive course as opposed to a constructive force. The law is absolute, and we should trust its impersonal action implicitly, right? It doesn't actually have any opinion about what it is we're seeking to manifest or create. It has no opinion. So the good news is that really anything we decide that we want to have or experience, any kind of a life we want to create, any kind of contribution we want to make into the world, right? The law has no opinion about whether we can or can't, or that's good or bad. It simply responds. The good news is it simply responds. The bad news is when we are operating out of fear or lack or self-motivation, right? The law also has no opinion about that and continues to outpicture fear and lack for us. It can do anything for us that we can conceive of it doing. It is the law of freedom to all who believe and obey it. See, and this is something that Ernest Holmes reminds us of over and over and over again. The freedom that we want to have to express our lives means we have to obey the law. What does it mean to obey the law? It's not like, oh, we have to obey the law, like not steal and stop at stop signs and right? It's not that kind of obedience. It's obey the law, meaning that we have to understand and use it correctly. So if we go to our thought about electricity, right? Some things that are put together with electricity require a ground wire. I know this because I haven't always realized that was the case. And sometimes there was this little wire left over that I didn't know what to do with. And if that ground wire isn't grounded, and then you turn the switch and you flow electricity, you can easily fry that little appliance or thing or light fixture that actually required a ground wire. Now, it didn't fry because the law of electricity said, you idiot, don't you know about ground wires and that you need to use them? No, it fried because I'm not obeying the laws of electricity. Certain circuits and systems, please don't ask me to explain it. I don't know. I only know now there's a ground wire, you have to ground it. And that means there's certain things you can put it to and certain things you can't put it to. Because if you put it to the wrong things, it won't actually do what it's supposed to do, right? This is what it means to be obedient to the law. So what this means is, this is the part I think we hate the most. What this means is that we have to take responsibility for whether or not we're obeying the law. What do we know about the universal law? The universal law responds to our thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs that are the culmination of which is how we believe life to be, like what we think is true about life. Not what we say we believe. Oh, I believe in the oneness of all life and I know that I'm a part of it. No, what we actually believe, which might be very different than what we say we believe. And so we have to obey the law by working to believe the kind of life that we want to experience, working to believe, to fully embrace, to embody in every aspect of our being that we must actually pay attention to what we think, say, and do, because this is what the law is using to create our life. Do you see? That's what it means to be obedient to the law. And we don't want to do it. We want to get away with being we want to get away with a little gossipy stuff. We want to get away with being negative. We want to get away with not confronting our patterns, and we want to get away with it because we're good people and we are thinking spiritual thoughts. And so we think somehow we should be rewarded with the life that we want. And in doing that, we're not obeying the universal law, the way the law works. So I remember, oh God, years ago, I really struggled with this word and this idea until I realized it's not someone that we're obeying, and it's not some capricious set of laws. It is understanding and using them, and really understanding how far you can use it, how much you can stretch it, how all the ways in which we can engage with it, because we understand how it works. That's where we started, an understanding of spirit and mental law. So we have this blind force, the universal law, and what's its job? Its job is simply to take cause and make effect. Actually, that's a silly way to say it because that makes it something separate. The law is embedded in the fabric of life itself, and what it does is bring about the effect of any cause. It's inherent in cause for it to become an effect. And we can see that, and we can recognize it. We can, and so we call it a law because that's the way it works. On the other hand, we have the universal spirit, which is the supreme knower. And the law can only operate on that which is known. So in the macrocosmic experience, the universal experience, right? It's outpicturing what is known as the infinite being of spirit, the supreme knower. And in such degree as our knowledge partakes of this infinite reality, this original knowledge or nature, it has power. The highest realization we can have is a recognition of the omnipresence of spirit. This will set greater possibilities in motion and will automatically provide a better concept of life. Provide us with a better understanding that, yes, in fact, there is a oneness. It is love and peace and joy and harmony and all of those things. And we are, in fact, a part of it. And you see, when we are embodying and embracing that in a deep and powerful way, then the law takes that embodiment and says, oh, yes, that's the effect that I'm creating. It's not because we decided to focus on spirit and because we decided to be love in action, and because we decided to live a life of joy, that we are being rewarded with these things. No, it's because we have done that we have set a new cause in motion in our own life. And that new cause is bigger, brighter, fuller, better, more complete than the smaller, limited causes that we have from our childhood or from our belief in our humanness or from our experiences, which have tended to cause us to limit our understanding of life. Consequently, those people who have had the greatest sense of the divine presence, whether it has been coupled wherever it has been coupled with the definite knowledge of the universal law of mind, these people have had the greatest power over the law. This was the secret of the power of Jesus. Because now there's no question about using the law, right? If we have communed with spirit to such a degree that we recognize that we are spirit made manifest, that we are the infinite individualized, then the use of the law is second nature, just as it's second nature for us to breathe, right? There's actually automatic processes that are lawfully working in the organic system of our body that keeps us breathing and keeps our heart beating, right? These are systems that operate in a lawful manner under the law of biology and how biology grows and functions and is healthy and alive, right? And the more that I'm communing with that, the more fully I can express it, the more completely I can engage with it, right? This is the same thing is true on the universal level. The deeper I can commune with the presence and really, really live into the spiritual identity of who I am, of who you are, the more fully we can do that, the more effortlessly we use the law, because there's no question my body's going to keep breathing. I don't think every few minutes, oh my God, am I still breathing, right? We call that panic attacks, and we actually say they are outside of the normal way in which our body should function. So when we are communing with spirit so deeply, it's not that spirit wants things for us. It's not that spirit out there is somehow doing it. It's that spirit as us has so deeply conceived of something, of a life, of a way, of a beingness, that as us, right? So we're participating in that. And we have spent time communing with that divine presence, with that larger understanding of life, so much that we have actually shifted where our identity sits. And now the use of the law is automatic, and we automatically obey it. We automatically cultivate thoughts that are in alignment with spiritual truth. We cultivate ways of engaging in the world that are in alignment with spiritual truth. We cultivate ways of speaking and acting that are absolutely in alignment with the infinite divine presence. And because we're doing that, we're automatically using the law for a greater experience of life for ourselves and for all of those around us. Do you see? So these two things are inextricably linked together. Now, the power of positive thinking and the law of attraction and things like that tend to focus only on the law. And one can go, you can use the law a fair amount to create a fair number of things, but it's a lot of work without the added experience of the communing with the divine. Because now I'm the one who's having to make it happen. I'm the one who's having to do it. And if I take my eye off that ball for even an instant, then the old patterns are beginning to reassert themselves. And so that's why the communing, the experience of spirit becomes so powerfully important, because it internally aligns us to the spiritual truth, which is always already there, and moves us into the place where our use of the law is automatic. So this is why Ernest Holmes says all is love and all is law. Love and law, this is our teaching. All right, so before we go on to the rest of this, we're going to stop here. Sometimes this stuff sounds so simple, but to actually really understand that this is what we're doing and to pay attention to it, that's why we say we seek to be conscious. We want to be conscious. We want to be conscious. What are we being conscious of? Are we in alignment with spirit? Are we obeying the law? Are we using it constructively? Are we contributing to the ongoing good of life's unfoldment? Or are we on autopilot? Are we not paying attention? Are we simply doing it the way that we've always done it? Thinking about life the way that we've always thought it? You see, that's why we seek to become spiritually aware and spiritually conscious. All right, so we're going to stop there. A little bit of conversation about love and law before we go on. I'm going to turn to Ryan and check in what's going on out there and see if we have any comments or questions or things that you would like to share about this and your experience of this. So Ryan, what's going on?
Thanks, Petra, and welcome to everybody once again who's joining us for the Sunday morning Science of Mind class. And thank you guys for participating. We always love to hear from you, love to see you guys here every Sunday. And we want to bring you guys into the conversation now. And so there's a couple ways you could do that. If you're watching us on Zoom, you can always hit the raise your hand icon located down below on the bottom of your screen, or you can simply chat your question or comment inside of the Zoom box and I'll bring it into the room. And the same goes for those who are watching us on Facebook Live. Just feel free to leave your questions and comments inside of the comments field, and that way I can bring it here into the room. And as always, I like to keep everything a secret, so that way people who want to remain anonymous with their questions can do so. So now is the time for you guys. Go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon. We'd love to see or hear from some of you. And well, they're working up the courage to do so, Petra. I think I'll bring one of these questions that came into the comment field here. It asks, would you say that law/principle is a primarily, quote unquote, by me level of consciousness, and the presence in spirit is a, quote unquote, through me level of consciousness? It occurs to me that when we talk about divine intelligence, it both principle and presence. What's your thought on this, Petra?
Well, that's a good question. And for those of you who are familiar with the 4 stages of development of consciousness, right? We have the first stage, which is the victim stage, to me. The second stage, which is the place where we recognize that know how we show up in life is by me, my attitudes, thoughts, and feelings, we call that by me, are making a difference. In the third stage of development of consciousness, it's through me. I recognize that there's something larger going on. And the fourth stage of consciousness is as me, which recognizes that I am spirit moving in the world. And so I would say, Ryan, the answer to that question is I would not make that association, because the truth is the principle and the presence are operating all of the time. I would say that that in the by me stage, we are learning about the law, but spirit is also already present. And what I don't want to do is to say that recognizing spirit through me is somehow an elevated sense of consciousness over the use of the law, because what I see people do is that when they move into third stage consciousness through me, they think somehow that they have now bypassed the law. That the law, that I'm just going to let spirit lay it on me. This is not what through me means at all. What through me means is that I recognize that there's something larger going on. That through me actually means that I recognize that both spirit and law are actually something universal. When in stage 2, I'm using the law in a very, quite frankly, psychological way. I'm focusing on my attitude. I'm focusing on my words. I'm focusing on my affirmations. I'm focusing on believing that spirit is present in me, that there's an indwelling presence, that God isn't out there somewhere, but is actually right here. So spirit and law are both present, but I'm using it from a very psychological, perhaps we might call egoic way. I'm using it from a very human-bound way of thinking about it. And so the sense of spirit that I'm seeking to commune with is the sense of spirit that is successful and able to manifest. And the use of the law is basically, usually, quite frankly, we're learning how to manifest stuff. We want to be successful. We want to manifest a house and a car and a job, and right. And we're the whole thing teaches us that there is an indwelling presence that we can experience and that we can, in fact, manifest. But we discover, well, two things, mostly what happens, two things. One, we discover that all those things that we manifested, yeah, that's not actually the answer. It's great to manifest stuff and success and experiences and all of that kind of stuff, but not for their own sake. For their own sake, it's all a dead end, and we begin to discover that. Okay, that was a tangent. I was about ready to go on. I'm not going on that tangent. And so then the through me stage, spirit and law are both equally as present, but we begin to recognize that there's a larger reality going on, that there's actually, these things are actually universal. And it isn't just that I have to be in charge of my attitude and that I have to have the power of positive thinking so that I can be successful, right? I begin recognizing that there's a larger reality to life that is seeking to express itself through me. That the reason spirit is present is because it's wanting to experience life as me. And I'm now using the law to maybe expand my horizons into something beyond what a limited idea of a good human life might be. I'm a little more willing to let the law show me some really unique thing that might be a door opening on the way to a greater life experience, and I might be more likely to step through it. In the through me stage of consciousness, the law brings us a lot more serendipity and coincidences. We're probably a little bit less obsessed with form, with the way it looks, because we recognize that life itself is the impulse and seeking to express itself. And so we're holding on a little less tightly, which is why the portal is surrender, right? We let go of a little bit of control. It has to look like this, be like this, work like this, do this, right? And our end results that we're using the law for tend to be a little more about the quality of life experience, about a greater expression, a greater contribution, and we're more willing to be surprised to see how that might unfold. But the presence and the law are just as active. It's just that we're using them from a different place. And ASME, when we move into ASME, the portal into ASME is transformation, right? We've been transformed, our consciousness. We're transforming our consciousness from a human point of view to the spiritual identity that we have. And now we recognize, this is what Jesus said, the Father and I are one, right? Now we recognize that when we act in the world, we are in fact spirit acting in the world. And when we use the law, we are in fact the infinite using the law as the individual that we are. And so we've completely embraced and become the paradox of the universal showing up as the individual. And in that moment, right, in that place, we are so embedded, so conscious that everything we do is a co-creative act, that we've moved into that place of enlightenment, of being conscious. Everything we do is a co-creative act. Everything, every act, every thought, everything we're reading, everything we're paying attention to, everything we're doing, we are the universe, co-creating life, using the law to express. And we become very conscious that we are that, and that is us, and that there's no separation between the two. And so in the as-me state, there is a complete automatic alignment with spiritual truth. We would never even consider to use the law in any other way but constructively. It would be, I mean, we don't even have to think about it anymore. And so I hesitate to break it up the way that question broke it up, because it implies that we are that maybe that one spirit or law is primary in one stage of development or not, or the other. And it's not. That's not it. What shifts is our relationship and use of, understanding of spirit and law. That's what's being developed through these stages of consciousness. It is our consciousness that's being developed, and our engagement, our understanding, right? It is impossible to divorce spiritual understanding from the proper use of mental law. And so in every case, our spiritual understanding is growing, and so our proper use of mental law is shifting and changing. And we are moving into a deeper alignment to that spiritual truth. So that is a great question. And yeah, that's what I think about that at the moment. I'll have a little more coffee. We'll see if anything else comes up. All right. Thanks, Ryan. I'm turning back to you.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you, Petra. I know it's been a long day and short night, so keep up with that coffee, but we always love your explanations.
Thank you. Yes, you'll notice it's a venti this morning.
Yeah, I did notice that actually. So I'd like to just invite anybody who's watching us here in the Zoom room to go ahead and hit the raise your hand icon. We'd love to hear from you guys. This is an interactive experience, not a retroactive experience. So therefore, we're here right now. So I'd love to just encourage you guys to get your voices heard and get your questions answered. And as I'm waiting for that to happen, I thought this comment that came across was actually really quite good. It kind of poses a question, though, so I want to get your take on this, Petra. It said, I think another word for obey could be honor. It seems less of a labor and more of connecting and embracing. What are your thoughts about that, Petra?
I think we're shilly-shallying. I think we're dilly-dallying because we don't like the word obey. Do you honor the law of gravity? There's no personalness to this. Honor feels like, oh, I have to somehow honor it, embrace it. No, you just have to use it. Do you honor the law of water? Do you honor the, I mean, so see, this is, I mean, he's really making this point. Often when we approach things which seem to be religious and spiritual, we think now we're outside of the realm of law. God is good. Right? So this is not about having a relationship with some deity out there that needs us to honor or embrace it. And we should get over the idea that somehow that makes it less, I don't know what, less scientific, less exacting. No, actually, we have to learn to use it and obey. And I know that word obey is very annoying. So if you think about it, really the question would be, what word would you use if you were talking about the law of mathematics, right? It's my favorite example because then the law of mathematics actually doesn't exist anywhere physically. can't be used up. Anybody can use it. You can use it for all kinds of things. So do I honor the law of mathematics if I actually do the algebraic question correctly? Am I dishonoring the law of mathematics if I forget that X and Y are equal and I don't move it over and onto the other side of the equation in its reverse form as is required in an algebraic question? Am I dishonoring it? Makes no sense, right? We don't honor or dishonor the law of mathematics. The law of mathematics is a completely, I mean, I don't even want to say the word blind force. It simply is what it is. And when we understand it, and it takes time, you have to work at it. I had a terrible 8th grade algebra teacher, and it ruined me for math, which is really too bad because I learned much later in life that I actually have a great head for math. And I blame it. I'm completely victimized by my 8th grade algebra teacher. Blame it entirely on him. Pretty funny, right? So I got really good at geometry, and I'm sorry I didn't go on, but there's such beauty in that. I mean, when we use the laws correctly, the laws of mathematics, I mean, that is how quantum physics that's how Einstein discovered his theory of relativity. It was because he was obedient to the laws of mathematics. And he kept seeking to describe the universe using the law of mathematics, but he couldn't. It wasn't about honoring the law. It was about obeying the way that it works and not kind of trying to fudge or hedge or push or, well, it sort of means this. Well, that little squiggly line kind of means the constant of the speed of light, but, give or take some, or, well, on Tuesdays because I feel like it. No, do you see what I'm saying? So that's why I love this sentence that often when we approach things that seem to be religious or spiritual, we think now we're outside of the law. Somehow we're purely in this realm of spirit, and that somehow our attitude toward the law should have these personal overtones, right? That it's so interesting. And even sometimes to think that our attitude to spirit should have these overtones of that we have to be on, that we have to worship or honor or any of those kinds of things, right? I want to go on and read this little section here, the next one. I love this.
Petra, before you do that, since we
Yes.
have a little bit of time left, I just want to honor those who have their hand raised.
Oh, good. Yay.
Yes. So just
yes,
now.
That's great, Ryan. See, we honor people. We honor people. The universe has no opinion about that. So that was beautifully stated. Thank you, Ryan. Go ahead.
You're welcome. I am here to honor. All right. So I'm going to call into the room Shauna. Shauna, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Good morning, Shauna.
Good morning, Dr. Petra. I love this section. It's always amazing how things show up just when you need them. So won't go into a lot of the story, but a close family member was diagnosed with cancer on Monday. And I am sorry to say that I spun right down into the hole. And it took me, and I spun down into the hole also with a story that this family member wasn't responding to it and taking the necessary actions that I thought this person should take. And I just spun down into the hole. It was just, it was Monday. I felt the tremendous weight of that diagnosis all week. And I realized towards the end of the week that, oh, damn, I get to practice everything I believe. And how much easier it is to think I'm one with spirit in the absence of a cancer diagnosis.
Yes.
And I'm not quite back to equilibrium, but I certainly am closer than I was Monday afternoon. And I realize, as you've been talking about it all morning is, it's just in the face of whatever shows up, it's just me keep surrendering to two absolute facts. One, there is a benevolent divine spirit always seeking the highest good. And two, the universal law always works.
Yeah.
And that I just have to keep surrendering to those two beliefs I hold.
Yes.
And I love what you said today. I listened to my meditation teacher today, and he talked about, actually, he was talking to me, so I'll just use my words. He said, Shauna, move to the passenger seat. You've already planted the seed. Move to the passenger seat. You have the divine spirit in the driver's seat, creating the outcome. Just release it and trust the driver, right? And then you said the second part, which I'm now putting with that because it's so beautiful. Sit in the passenger seat. You've very clearly invited the expression of what you want, which is, this family member is perfect, whole, and complete. Sit in the passenger side, surrender it, take your hand off the wheel, have fun, and I love your part. Wait for the beautiful surprise. And
Yes.
It's going to be more gorgeous than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
Just thank you.
You're so welcome.
You sort of booked in my week for me.
Yay.
But really, really, really helped. So thank you.
You're so welcome.
Just use the most perfect words, Dr. Petra. And I just want to hear that from us.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for sharing that. Right. And it doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen. And it doesn't mean that we don't get knocked off course. And it doesn't mean that things aren't going on around us, that, whether it's in our own life or in the lives of people we love or in the life of humanity as a whole, right? Doesn't mean those things aren't playing out. But Shauna, as you said, right, it might take time, but we begin to recenter ourselves in spiritual truth. And so you entered into this, you gave us a segue into this next thing that I just want to mention before we go back to the other people of their hands raised. In this next paragraph, he says, a constant realization of the presence of spirit will provide a sense of divine companionship that no other attitude could produce. Why should we not take the highest and best? God is. And we should realize this truth and make use of it. So when you take your hands off the wheel, right, and we say the fabulous song, Jesus Take the Wheel, right? It's spirit plus law, take the wheel. We've given the direction and we've said, this is the outcome. And now we take our highest idea of life and our understanding of the universal law, and we place our absolute trust in that process, and we stop trying to figure out the how, right? Our job is the what, not the how. And then we do have this divine companionship, this deep recognition that spirit is in fact present. If spirit is present, that means the law is, of course, operating. And the law must manifest the truth that it has been given. That's its job. And so whenever we are using this analogy, we want to remember that we're actually giving the control to spirit/law, principle/presence, right? These two things are simultaneously co-engaged. They're basically two sides of the same coin. Right. So we might say that when I'm sick and I want my mother to come and hug me and kiss it and make it better, right? We want the presence of our mother and we want the function that she has of nurture, let's say, right? Do you see? It's not just the presence of our mother. It is also the act of nurturing. So it's spirit, and the acting is actually done by the law. and it will absolutely lawfully produce that which we trust as the outcome. And yeah, there are times once we have put that deep consciousness in place that we do have to take our hands off the wheel and trust that it is unfolding. And of course, when it's involving other people, they too are participating in the whole process, which makes it very interesting, but even more open to all of those beautiful surprises. So understanding that we're working with a mechanical law does not mean spirit isn't in the picture. That's where our divine companionship comes in. But spirit never operates alone. Actually, spirit doesn't operate. Spirit simply is. It's the law that operates. And when we can really, really ground that in our consciousness, we will stop ever feeling like we are disconnected from that. We will stop feeling like we need to somehow worship, honor, make it separate in any way. And we begin to approach the move into spiritual identity, which is truly one of the most humbling experiences there is. All right, Ryan, I can't see the clock. I didn't get a chance to change it around, so I don't know if we have time for one more or not. So I'm going to come back to you.
Well, it is a little over time here, and right now I think everybody's feeling complete. But I did want to just mention that Shauna wanted to give out to shout out to Sherry, the practitioner who was helping her to get through that. And also, we have practitioners available today after our Sunday celebration, and I'll go ahead and put the link in the description so that way you guys can go and meet with a practitioner one-on-one today so they can find the spiritual truth for you. So check that out. It starts right after Sunday celebration. So whenever Sunday celebration ends, which you have to watch on Facebook Live, that's when you want to go over to the practitioner room. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. Great.
And we have fabulous music from Amy Bishop today. Reverend Karen is giving the talk today as we continue our conversation on moving on up in March. As things begin to, maybe we can see the light at the end of the tunnel with the pandemic. Hopefully people are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with their homes. We're still working on that here at the center. We are moving on up together. And so we look forward to seeing you at the celebration. Have a great and glorious day. Bye for now.